Greetings, I am Ellie. Welcome to this channel, Gate to Babylon, Gate to Everything. Welcome to the channel. Now let's welcome to this new video. Today we're gonna react more accurately on this video by Kings and Generals channel, right? Kings and Generals. And we're gonna later on we're gonna react to this series, which is the early Muslim conquest of the 7th century, early Muslim / Arab conquest of the 7th century in the Middle East. And we're gonna continue this series. We're gonna release new videos. We're gonna react to those videos, as well as we're gonna later on react to the previous videos, the ones that in this length, like in 20 minutes ish, not the long ones. And I'm a Muslim, and I am an Arab as well. I'm really professional in this history, in this regard, and all that it's connected to it. I'm also good at Three Kingdoms history, as well as other and Spring and Autumn history in China. Yeah, but I'm really professional, really good in regards to history of Islam or at least Islam by Muhammad until later on, and all that stuff in that regard, all the way until today. Like all this in that particular area in the world, of the history in that regard. A little bit before it, I know that I'm really good also at the history of the Unitarian Christian, the divide of the Eastern and the Western Roman Empire, so on and so forth. So I'm not really a historian. I'm not really a history teacher, but I'm really good in that regard. I'm a history person. I know I've dealt with resources. I've took history papers in university and also in high school. I know how do all this academic stuff, and I'm doing it. I'm 20 years old, and I'm doing it since I was 10. Like even before that. When did I start exactly? Well, if you're gonna count it literally when I started 7 years old. I'm really good in history. And all that stuff that regard history. I love it, and I'm good at it, and I'm really informed about it. So we're gonna react here about this video and tell you side stuff, additional information, where they go wrong, so on and so forth, because they did have some stuff wrong. Tiny stuff, but wrong is wrong, So let's go.
Egypt was the wealthiest, most productive and coveted land in all the ancient world, and thus the target of many invasions. From the Assyrians.
First, it's not really is. Egypt wasn't the most productive in the ancient world. He's talking here about agriculture. That's almost the most important thing. Period. However, it really wasn't. In the area, yes. In comparison to Europe, yes. In the Middle East, yes. Maybe after Mesopotamia, because they have two rivers, not one. But it's not the most. China and the Middle East always are the richest and the most capable and all that stuff areas in the world, all the way until few centuries, a century after the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and after like halfway through the colonization era, that's when China and the Middle East goes down, as well as India. India also gets colonized, so most of the UK might came from their conquest of India. And the Indian conquest was successful because the Ottoman were too tired, and before so they didn't help the Indians, so the Indian fought. Plus, there was internal problems. Just the British were in the right time and the right place, man. And they had the navy. Before them, the Portuguese and the Spanish and the church forces and orders tried to take India. They weren't successful at any measure because of the Ottoman navy. But after the Napoleon Wars and the Coalition Wars, France and UK expanded all over the place. After that, UK became really powerful and took down India. And after they took down India, Great India, which is from Pakistan to Myanmar, including Nepal and some of the mountains there in that area, there's some tiny countries there. All that, it's Great India, it's all India or Hindia from Hindu, but anyway. So there was one empire, but there was internal problems as well as no reinforcement, no organization, and also took time. The conquest was really slow, and it took like a few decades for the British to take India down. Plus, difference in technology, but it wasn't really that much difference. The Indian had cannons and had even some stuff that the British didn't have. They had heavily armed elephants, tons of those. Heavily armed that the musket fire really doesn't do much. And they had rockets, launchers, kind of like RPG on top of those elephants, and ground kind of like battery rocket launchers, like you see in the similar in a way, not exactly, but similar in the idea to if you know Warhammer, not Warhammer 40k, the Warhammer game. Warhammer, the Empire faction, they had some rocket launchers, they called them battery launchers, something like that. They had similar to those, like, they weren't weak in any manner. They had huge armies and stuff like that, but the British were just more organized. They have constant attacks, politics, strong economy, like organization of the economy. They kept annoying them. They were extremely smart in terms of politics, dividing, making it, divide and conquer, so on and so forth. They had more experience. The area was for a long time in peace. Like a lot of the Indian generals and stuff like that and the politicians and the leaders didn't have a lot of experience. So on and so forth. It led to them get conquered. So yeah, where we were. Oh my god, I forgot. Yeah, Egypt wasn't the most productive. There's China, which is equally productive to the entire Middle East. So India was the third most richest area in the world until after Napoleon was finished. Until that time, it was the third richest area in the world, and the Middle East is the richest area in the world, but it always goes back and forth with China, first and second. India is capable to be as rich as China and the Middle East. However, it has special politics and special climate, and so it didn't allow that. And also it has the merchant weren't really having a lot of influence on the people lives, like the way how the rich is disputed, like some politics and the frame, how things work limited them throughout the centuries to be as productive and as rich as China and the Middle East. And that's the reason why the Middle East was constantly, getting, invaded by foreign powers after the fall of the new Babylonian Empire. Persians started, then Alexander the Great, and then his empire after his death divided into three, and then the Romans came. And yeah, that's basically it. And then the Muslim came, crushed both the Persians and the Eastern Roman Empire. In the Battle of Yarmouk, the Western Roman Empire sent reinforcement. So yeah, nobody knows about that much, but it wasn't the most productive. You need to be accurate when you say these words. People who doesn't know much about history can really get the wrong idea here. It was amongst the top, 5 richest area in the world. That would be accurate.
Assyrians to the Achaemenid Persians of Cyrus, followed by Alexander the Great and finally the Romans, Egypt changed hands multiple times, serving as a prestigious jewel in the crown which filled the treasuries of occupying peoples and empires.
That is true, but when you say the entire world, that's different.
The Muslim Caliphate was no different in this
true and wrong
regard. Welcome to our video.
It's true and wrong simultaneously. It's true because it is true, but it's wrong as well. The way how you understand the sentence depends on the way how you understand the sentence, where you get from that sentence can be wrong or right, depending on what you thought about it, depending on what you know previously. That's why I don't like oversimplified stuff. You lose many other things. There's not much people can it's really also really hard to simplify and maintain multiple meanings. It can't be understood in the wrong way. The Caliphate, the first Caliphate, the Rashidun Caliphate, the most authentic Caliphate, because other Caliphate after it, there are more Sultans and Caliphate, because the idea of succession, there was some monarchy element to it, which is totally against Islamic teachings in regard of monarchy, where the brother or the son takes the throne after the person who became the caliph. The caliphate is some form of republic, but not really a republic, not fully democracy. It's the democracy and autocracy of the capable and the wise, with a little bit of Islamic touch to it. That's what the caliphate is. Later on it became more sultan. Even the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman caliph, he's not really caliph. He only proclaimed to be a caliph. Some, in a way, replaced the caliph. The Ottoman emperor or the Ottoman sultan is not a caliph. They started to call themselves caliph because nobody else in the time being is more than close to be called a caliph than the Ottoman Empire, and they need that title to unite the Muslims and so on and so forth. However, yes, they're the closest, but all of them are not even 50% close to have the requirements and to hold that title. They only started calling them caliph after they took down their authority over the Medina and Mecca. That's basically what it is. Ottoman Empire he's the Ottoman Emperor, Ottoman Sultan, not really fully a caliph. The only, proper caliphate by definition is the first caliphate. And a few tiny ones, in in the middle of Africa and depending, very short time living ones in India. But there's not really a proper caliphate than just first caliphate, because then the Umayyad Caliphate started, the succession. The son takes the throne, which totally demolished the election system in a way or another. The first caliphate was using to choose the most capable, the most worthy, and the most, the best amongst them for that position. As well as authority is not completely to that person. So he has a lot of authority, the caliph, but not all the authority to him. If the caliph does something really wrong and without an explanation by the Islamic law, wouldn't be justified no matter what. However, the Umayyad and the Abbasids, they had a little bit loose in that regard. They were a little bit loose, which totally not right by Islam. And the Abbasids supposed to be in the beginning to bring that back, which is one of the most criticism at the time against the Umayyads. But then there's a tiny revolution happened, overthrown of the actual first Abbasids, and they just said psych to the original Abbasids, and they continued succession. This particular family that said that those are the only caliphs, the only emirs or princes, like prince, because you can't say like this guy is a caliph of that guy, successor of this guy. So they started like from Omar, to call the caliph. The caliph is the prince of all Muslims, the prince, because he's the leader. The word prince in Arabic means it's emir, coming from the word amr, which is order. When you give order, you give amr. Emir is the one who gives order, or has the authority to give order, and also can be translated to prince. Son of the king is emir, as called emir, as well, the one who gives order. The king is the owner, and the prince is the one who gives order, as the son of the owner. You see? But the king is God. But God is king of everything. But however, the caliph is the prince of Islam. That's basically what it is. All the other caliphs after the Rashidun Caliphate, they totally don't meet the caliphate requirements. Anyway, what's wrong about that sentence is it can be understood that the caliphate is looking for money, and just like any empire, just wanna expand. I will make a video on this. Why did they commit to this? Because it's much deeper than that. And the main reason for it, just to make a short answer, but this answer also requires explanation. But if you understand history, you will understand this. The main reason why the caliphate started to expand is because of the Persian Empire influence on them. I mean by influence on them, not its existence, not just because it is there. The Persians were trying to overthrow the caliph. They supported the uprising on the first caliph. They had problem. They were trying to destroy the caliphate. They were supporting, those guys and other reasons like that. So they had to take down the Persians. They had to bring the war with the Persians. Plus the father, an early Persian king, the Persian emperor, had a dream that when the prophet was born, had a dream that the Arabs will overtake his empire. And since then they all the kings had they believed what their king was at the time, their grandfather was saying about his dream, so they had a lot of regard into the Arab world. That's why they invaded some parts later on the coast. They cannot go deep, but they took some part of the coast. So on and so forth, they were scared from the Arabs, and because of that, they were trying to, and also they had information on this expanding, the caliphate, like the Arabs got organized in one full government. So the Persian were trying to overthrow that. So that's why they started with attacking the Persian, but then they had to attack the Romans. Otherwise, the Persian and the Romans gonna unite against them. I'll make a full video on that in the future. However, for now, they were not expanding just for money. Money is something. When you're expanding, when you're fighting war, money is essential, alright? So they're not taking it for the sake of money, for the sake of its richness. They're not gonna steal it. It's like economy, flow. But they want the flow to flow into their dominion, right? That's for their expansion, because expansion needs money, not for the sake of money, alright? For instance, Omar didn't have anything in his hand. The Caliph is not like a Caesar, alright? He's not an emperor. It's all for the people. Plus, the Romans are unjust, and all they care about is, for honor and glory. All they did has no honor, no glory, and it's totally, unjust, no equality, no everything like that. These are ideas, the qualities of the Muslim wanted to deliver. And I wanna say, many people don't understand this. Many people don't know this. But after the Muslim conquest, not many converted. Nobody got forced to be converted. All the way up to the 17th century, 16th, 17th century-ish. Then they started to convert in masses by their own decision, and became, instead of 90% or more Christians, majority area, to 85% majority Muslim area. And now it is 90%, 91% Muslim majority area, and you have 8% Christians and 1% others. Half of those, I would guess, are Jews. But nobody persecuted the Jews as well. There's no persecution. They came to liberate the area, alright? Many historians agree with this. Many generals agree with this. Just do your proper research. So they didn't come here for power. Plus, they continue to fight the Byzantines, because the Byzantines continue to fight them. They didn't try to make, after they lost the Levant, the Byzantine didn't try to make a treaty of peace. They didn't. They always want to take back, the Levant. Most of the Christians in the Levant and Middle East, half of them or more, fought with the Arabs, because they are also Arab. This is areas. We'll talk about this in the other video. However, let's continue.
Covering the Muslim campaign in Byzantine Egypt and the battles of Babylon and Heliopolis. The sponsor of today's video is Lucy, a clean wintergreen pomegranate. Heads up, this product despite winning all of Syria and Iraq for Islam in a series of stunning victories, the Caliphate's military situation remained unstable. Fierce Persian resistance continued in the mountains to the northeast, while Emperor Heraclius was hindering the Muslim advance as much as he could. To stall for time, while he created an impenetrable dead zone between the Anatolian plain and enemy-occupied Syria, Heraclius sent envoys to his Christian Arab allies in the Jazeera area, requesting that they attack the Muslim army in Syria.
those are only Christian allies that had ties, money, and other things with the Byzantines. Plus, they are originally part of the Persian Empire, and they were using them, the Romans, against the Persians. In the 9 years Persian Byzantine War previously. They're only allies. They were fighting only because they don't want the emperor to be angry. They don't want to be in the middle of the ground. They don't want to have enemies who are trying to just give the least damage possible. Also, they want to maintain their own power, their leaders, so on and so forth. So it's not like because they're Christian, just because they're Christians with the Byzantine. No, the Byzantines are not a Christian power, alright? They're proclaiming to be a Christian power, but they're not. At this, in this history, in this period, later on they are. However, until this time, they're not. Not just the Byzantine, the entire Roman Empire, it's not Christian. It became to be Christian even until it is full. It's not a Christian, it's not fully Christian, alright? Well, no, not until it's full. A century before it is full, until that time, it's not fully Christian. There's still some emperors were not Christians, alright? In the previous Roman teachings and stuff like that, similar to the Greeks and all that stuff. Some of them were philosophers, atheists. Not all philosophers are atheists, but I'm saying like they follow some atheist philosophers at the time in Greek, in Athens, I think, city of Athens. So it's not a Christian power. It's not fully a Christian power. It's not like it has nothing similar in any way with, let's say, the Catholic Church organization. I'll call it organization because there's a Catholic Church as a part of religion, or as a group of Christians. However, it's more than that. It's a power in itself. Pope is in a way is emperor. However, I'm saying it's not like the Catholic Church. All right, it's different. The main thing they care about is money, power, authority. That's it. That's the top thing they care about, alright? It's not about Christians or other religions or stuff like that. Although they want to maintain their version of Christianity for, controlling the religion, so you control the people. As well as they want to maintain an identity. They want some form of unity. To have, so the word of the emperor or the emperor generals are more powerful, so on and so forth. But the main thing is power, authority, money. That's it. And these people want to maintain their own. So the Persians weren't really that good at them. The Roman used them against the Persians. So when the Persians getting weaker in their area, yes, technically under leadership of the Persians, they not officially have declared themselves a separate entity. Neither they joined officially the Romans because they don't want the Persians to attack them, as well as they are in close border with the Muslims, so the Arabs of the south. They at this period, in this year, in this timeline, they are a separate power on their own, but officially they're not, So they want to maintain their own power, their leaders. That's why they fought with the Romans.
They obeyed the emperor's orders, crossing the Euphrates and arriving outside Emesa in March 638, where Abu Ubaidah had concentrated his forces to meet them.
Just to comment a little bit. Abu Ubaidah, his name is not Abu Ubaidah, it's a nickname.
However, Umar, in his typically hands-on fashion, reacted to this news by sending orders to Sa'd in Persia for 3...
It's not Sa'd, it's Sa'd. Sa'd. Sa'd son of Waqqas. Bin is son of, or Bint is daughter of. I don't know why they continue, using the bin. Ibn, bin, you see? For example, Omar bin As. Omar, Amr, it's Amr, not Omar. Not Omar, but Omar. You see? Amr bin Al-As. Al-As is Al-As. However, Ibn is son of. Ibn is son of. Omar son of Al-As. Amr son of Al-As. Just to clarify that. And this guy over here is Sa'd, son of Waqqas.
Columns to invade Jazeera from Iraq. When this group of Muslim warriors launched their attack and began plundering, the Christian Arabs retreated. In the aftermath,
I wanna clarify something. The Muslim plundering is different than other plundering, alright? Because when you say plundering, their plundering is different, because if you thinking about the classic way of what plundering is, that type of plundering totally goes against the teaching of Islam. Like, this is clear in Islam, alright? Their plundering is different. In Islam, you cannot cut a tree if you're not gonna use it. You cannot, burn, destroy around. You cannot hurt or damage the civilians. You can't even injustly in any way damage the civilians. You cannot injust, anyone, even the nobles. And you cannot kill elderlies, women's, babies, young people, or injured. You cannot kill the injured. You cannot, just kill people. You cannot steal their property. Actual property, their homes, their jewelry, and so on and so forth. However, you could take, for example, if they have a big farm, or if it's a nobility, you can, as part of the invasion, if they don't send a message to you like, I'm surrender, I'm not gonna fight, because of how war it is, and it's basically, they're gonna lose some, but you're not gonna take their family, you cannot take their jewelry and their money and their gold, so on and so forth. You have to be, you have to be very careful in what you're doing, and any mistake happens, you have to pay them with a lot of money. They have the right for that. So it's very complicated, procedure, and you have to be extra careful with it. It's not normal blundering, alright? It's not Viking stuff, okay?
forces under Sa'd turned.
However, I want to say, like, blundering is, it's not only, Viking were doing something totally different or something on the line like that at their time. But however, it's not like that. Muslim plundering is not like that.
And annexed Jazeera completely. At the same time, multiple mounted raiding parties were sent by Abu Ubaidah into Roman lands. Khalid, the commander of one of these contingents, captured Marash in autumn 638 and hauled vast quantities of loot back to his base at Kinisrin.
The loot is not from the people. It's from the ministry, from the stuff that the government is hiding, and from there's a lot of stories like tons and tons of gold like bought underground and stuff in special hidden areas and stuff in castles and so on and so forth have been found in Persia, stuff like that. So it's not like taking the stuff from the people. Alright, you can't do that in Islam. Like seriously. I'm not joking, like it's written in the Quran, alright?
However, Khalid wasn't a man accustomed to hoarding wealth, routinely distributing his personal share of battle spoils to others.
He's also a son of one of the sons of the rich, if not the second richest, if not the richest, like definitely amongst the top 10 richest in the entire Arabian Peninsula. His father had 1,000 dinar, 1,000 times 1,000, like 100,000, yeah, 1,000,000 dinar, 1,000,000 big thick dinar. Dinar is a gold coin, a big gold coin. 1 dinar, basically you can live with your family of 7 members for like a month, at the highest level you can think of. With 1 dinar you can buy 10 suits of armor at the time, and if you compare that to the medieval time, you can buy, you need 2 dinars to buy a full night suit of armor of the 16th century, top niche, top quality, made like exactly for you. 2 gold coins, 2 big gold coins. So he's very rich before he does anything. Alright? Let's continue.
On one occasion, after his raid on Heraclius' lands, an Arab chief and excellent poet, Ashaz bin Qais, recited a beautiful piece for Khalid, and in return was given 10,000 dirhams. Unknown to the poet's benefactor, this act of generosity was in fact to herald the end of his peerless military career. Caliph Umar had been concerned about Khalid for years by 638, specifically that his personal brilliance and constant victories were enticing the Muslims to worship him rather than God.
It's not worship him directly, because the word worship in Islam and some other religion a little bit, had multiple meanings, similar multiple meanings, and so on and so forth. When he means worship, we're not gonna pray to him. Alright, we're not, do the prayer how Muslims do to him. He's not gonna be an idol, or so on and so forth. However, the intention of doing things might get shift. That's what Omar was scared about. Get shift, especially with the new recruits, and the new Arab recruits in the region, especially in the south, the close to Caliph, will have some intention, which affects their belief in the way of, because intention is extremely important in Islam. So when it shifts to him, then rather to God, we want to emphasize that victory comes from God. Alright, and that's very important in Islam. Alright, it's not the good general thing that gives the victory. Like, logically speaking, it does, and everybody knows about that. Alright, all these generals, all of them are intelligent and they know that. However, if God wants them to lose, they would. He's God. Alright, so they winning, they understand, yes, their action leading them to victory, but in the same time, they're winning because of God. That's also a very important thing in Islam. When someone becomes rich, you didn't become rich because of your action. Your action is the cause, or is one of the causes. It's an important cause. You have to do actions. You're not gonna sit there and wait for God to do something. You need to do your part in the most perfect way possible, and you leave the rest to God. It's that also would need a whole video on it is alright. However, this is the story behind it.
So when Umar received reports of his general's extravagance, Umar used it as an excuse to dismiss the Sword of Islam from his post and bring him to Medina. When the two formidable men came face to face, the Caliph spoke the words, "You have done, and no man has done as you have done. But it is not people who do, it is Allah who does."
Allah. I don't know what's the problem with. I don't know what's the problem with Allah. Like, come on, man. I don't know what's the problem with the letter ha. Ha. Soft edge. Extremely soft edge. Allah. You see here? Allah. 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 Alright? Anyway. And what it's saying here in Arabic is Ma ramayta idh ramayta walakin Allah rama. This is actually originally it's part of a verse in the Quran. You didn't throw wait, let me translate properly. Ma ramayta idh ramayta walakin Allah rama. You didn't throw what you did throw, but God walakin God Allah throw, because in Arabic you don't have many times we don't have something like did, it, is. You know, this what's called is a noun sentence. In English there's no noun sentence. When you have sort of like the noun sentence, you will have is, it in it, but in Arabic there's no is, it. Like for example, this is the book. In Arabic we'll say this the book. You get it? So you didn't throw what you did throw, but God did throw, or God did throw it. Alright? This is crucial in the belief of Islam. Even becoming rich is not you who became, it's not you, your action solely, or your action primarily made you rich. God that made you rich because He allows that. It's part of faith and all that stuff. But this is crucial thing in Islam. Not to get arrogant. Look, I did this. You have to be humble.
It is Allah who does. After this, Khalid left Arabia for Conquest, where he lived just 4 more unhappy, unremarkable years before
those 4 years that's unhappy and remarkable, they didn't really explain it. They could have add 1 sentence more and it would be a better thing. This here looks weird to me. What you want about, like, that's what I don't like about oversimplifying. Those 4 years is when, which he later on talks about, but those 4 years is when the plague happened, and all his 40 sons died as well in the plague. His 40 sons were, some of them might be more capable than Khalid himself in intelligence. Some of them fought with Khalid, many of them. He had a daughter that fought with him. He had multiple daughters, not all of them sons. He had 40 sons and some other daughters as well. However, one of his daughters were fighting with him, and was an officer, alright, in the same. So yeah, he died. He's one of those who died in the plague. That's why it's 4 unhappy years. The plague didn't run for 4 years, but he died in the plague.
finally passing away in 642. As the undefeated victor of hundreds of...
He died very young. He died in the plague.
...clashes leaves our story. Another bold but historically unappreciated Arab...
He's unappreciated outside of the Arab world, but many knows that son of Al-As is as capable as Khalid in many ways. However, I would say that he's more capable than Khalid in trade, business, economy, diplomatics, and politics. However, Khalid way better than him in terms on the battlefield, sieges, all that stuff. He's unappreciated outside the Muslim world, but the Muslim world, the Arabs, knows a lot about him.
General enters the limelight. That was the...
He entered the limelight before that. Anyway, let's move on.
48-year-old Amr ibn Alas, who won distinction during the battles at Ajnadain, Yarmouk and many others. When Abu Ubaidah appointed the conquered regions to his subordinates, Amr received all of Palestine. Upon moving into the area, he forced the surrender of Gaza and several other Roman garrisons which had remained unconquered after the fall of Jerusalem. In early 639, plague spread rapidly throughout the Levant. The Arabs...
You see, he died in Khalid died in 640. He died in the plague. Khalid died in the plague, and his 40 sons and all of his daughters as well. And I remember even one of his 4 wives as well. If not all of them, I'm not sure in that regard, but I know all of his, not siblings, what do you call it, all of his daughters and sons died in the plague as well. The plague killed over 30,000 people of those that saw the Prophet and talked to the Prophet, and killed many important generals and so on and so forth. If this plague doesn't happen, Khalid was still alive, and many others, warriors and such, and strong units and so on. There's many units got totally wiped out by the plague. If this plague doesn't happen, the conquest into Persia will be much faster than already as fast as it was. The rest of this Persia fall in just a year, man. Later on, after the conquest of Egypt, didn't take much long. Like the certain, after they passed certain areas, rest of Persia fall pretty fast afterwards. 1 year and basically 18-19 months. Persian Empire, bye-bye. Their conquest into the Levant will be much faster. They will reach here. The conquest into the rest of Northern Africa will be much faster. Not 1 century to fully control Northern Africa. The conquest into Spain and Portugal, Andalus, will happen like at least 70 years earlier, and they will take down the Khanate, the Khan, and they will reach the Mongols and parts of Russia, the Khanate, the Turks and the others much earlier, and they would reach China much quicker. And in terms of India, China and India, I think at that regard, when they reach it, there's no need to conquer. Even the Turks, they will have few battles as they did, and the West would just convert to Islam. But that procedure, that reach will happen much quicker, much earlier. In terms of China and India, was pretty divided at the time, so they can enter through diplomatics, through trade, through business, through making religious missions, where those areas weren't really that much focused on religion. There's many religions in the area anyway already, so nobody can oppose certain people. The kings and the loyalty and the nobles wouldn't oppose new people telling people about their religion, because the Persian and the Byzantine didn't allow even simple people to go there and talk about Islam, tell them what I believe. You can't say that what you believe, and especially perhaps you would able to visit people and tell them what you believe, But when people start to convert to you, they will notice it and they will persecute you, and your religion will call you heretics or blah blah blah. Alright? Same with and the Persians, basically they worship their emperor, alright, in a way or another. And the way how the Byzantine Persian work with their injustice and hierarchy, and the Roman Empire is almost God. Well, much less than the Persians, but yeah. What I call it, Alexander the Great, he got his idea of being, son of Zeus, all that bullshit from the Persians. They defeated him. I would say like the Persians defeated, Persians are much harder to conquer, After you conquer them, there's much more problem than just conquer them. There's certain people in them, like few hundreds that are there, they will like destroy your life through politics, diplomatics, and trade route, controlling certain trade routes, and that much. You need like few thousand, like 2,000 to totally ruin an entire empire if you're playing those things and assassination and stuff like that. You have 2,000 highly trained soldiers with few individuals, traders and stuff like that supporting. You can like mess up an entire empire by secret through the shadows. That's basically what the Persians really good at that. And the kingdom of Almut later on, multiple centuries later, all that stuff. So yeah, most of the problems with that the first caliphate had and the other caliphate had were all from Persia, alright? Even Omar had the word like, I hope, like, Omar didn't like going into Persia anyway, because if you enter into the Persian land, Mesopotamia, this is Mesopotamia, if you enter the Persian land, you're either gonna take all of it, so you start and you never stop until it's finished, or you're gonna mess up this entire area, man, and even they might get into Egypt. Like serious, this is big problem. They cannot go deeper than this line because of the desert. So the Arabs anyway, they've been successful in the first attack, in the first campaign of this area, but they were ready to make multiple campaigns because they can attack without anyone attacking them. Well, they'll be very happy if someone enters the desert. They'll just wipe you out. That requires a whole video on its own. That will be in the other video that I talked about. That requires a whole video on its own right. However, this plague, basically I can firmly say, reduced the power of the first caliphate by at least 50%, and because of that plague, the problems with the division with Ali's time and how Uthman got killed in Medina, all these problems, even Omar wouldn't get assassinated if this plague didn't happen. And his reign will go longer than that, as it seems to be, and it will be the true power of the caliphate will rise. But before the true power rises, the plague came. The plague that slowed them down. Alright? The plague not only slowed them down, killed many people that they didn't document their way of thinking, they didn't document their style of fighting, their experience and their martial arts. There's many martial arts lost in time because China has like a lot of documenting, Kung Fu, almost everything documented. There's many lost, many papers called burned, so on and so forth, but Chinese martial art highly documented. Many things lost to the plague pretty quickly, and it's cause of all the problems that the caliphate had later on, and it slowed the caliphate by at least 70% in terms of its rapid expansion, and slowed and made them 50% weaker, so on and so forth.
Unaccustomed to this kind of terrible disease because of their nomadic lifestyle, died in the thousands, including
their lifestyle is not really nomadic. They had cities, villages, cities,
including generals Yazid, Shurabil, and Abu Ubaidah himself,
and Khalid bin Walid as well, died due to the plague.
It is worth noting that upon Yazid's death, his younger brother Muawiyah was appointed as governor in his place.
Yeah, that's important for later episodes, which were gonna be horrible in terms of I'm pretty sure anyone who makes a video later on Muawiyah and how he had some problems, this the differences with Ali in terms of they didn't agree in certain stuff after the assassination of or the killing of Man. That's why Umayyah is important, which from where the second caliphate or the second power came to be, which is Umayyad Caliphate. As I said, it's more sultanate than a caliphate, but anyway. Which is a cause later on to the rise of the Abbasids and how the Spain got separated from the list of the Islamic world after the rise of the Abbasids and the loss of Morocco because of their uprising due to the Abbasid not changing the stuff that Umayyad changed, as well as due to due to the Umayyad rule, they left the Umayyads, and because they became a different sultan of their own right, their leaders kind of wanna stay their own thing. Money and power. In that regard, there was some money and power problems, which is obvious problem. That's why it limited the Muslim expansion. Not fully to the same extent to other nations, but some. But that's why he's saying Muawiyah is important to note. I'm pretty sure his information regarding that part is gonna be horrible. Everyone makes ton of mistake in that regard. Plus, many want make the videos short, but you cannot make short videos in these topics. Trust me. Otherwise, you're gonna leave a lot of information, and you're gonna make a lot of problems. Plus, when you're saying information, oversimplify is problem, because I understand what he's saying by this, but I'm pretty sure many other people are gonna interpret this in the wrong way. Not everyone is a historian, okay?
Amr, who survived, was given command of the army, and this gave him a golden opportunity to propose an idea.
It is also worth of note is he didn't survive because he just survived. He's the person who defeated the plague. He found a solution to the plague. He's saying separate the people from the other people who have the plague and so on and so forth. And the plague wouldn't expand. It's like quarantine basically. But he did a special quarantine procedure, which we cannot do in our timeline, in the day and age. Plus, it had smaller amount of people and stuff like that. However, he's saying separate the people from the people, separate and all that stuff. It's there's a fire. He understood the plague like a fire. If you separate the wood from the fire will stop expansion and it will go down. So his solution to the plague was, every 5 in a group will go on their own in the woods, will leave the city and everything and go to the woods, live outside for a week or until another notice on their own, and never touch each other and never talk or see or even do anything with other groups of 5 around, as well as leaving behind all the ones that are infected by the plague, and anyone who get infected by plague by the groups of 5 will get left or must retreat or go back to the others who are living in the city and all that stuff, and later on the city got clean and all that stuff. So that's how he killed the plague. he used logic and stuff like that, analyzed it, like how to solve this problem, the plague. So he just separated the people, separated the wood from the fire, and the fire stopped the plague disappearing in the region. That's also very important. Otherwise, they're not gonna lose half of their might, because men at the time are the most important thing, far more important than even your money and supplies, man. Men are the most important thing. Even nowadays, men are important. You know, the intelligent ones, the capable commanders, the veteran ones, the high-skilled, high capable units, strong men, highly skilled of their stuff. You know, different skills, different capabilities, engineers, all that stuff, traders. You know, traders, and you know, money owners, and you know, businessmen, diplomatics. Politician, all that stuff. Those men are very important. The most even nowadays, the most resource a country has, it is youth, and it is capable people with high skills. The warriors are the most important thing, and it is what they are really good at, the caliphate. The warriors and the generals. They could have lose more than 50% of their might if this plague continue, and Amr, a son of As, didn't do a solution to it.
To the Caliph. Having visited Alexandria multiple times earlier in his life, Amr was well aware of just how prosperous the Nile region was, and believed it would be easy to conquer. The new commander put forward his plan to seize Roman Egypt for Islam, confidently declaring to the Caliph, it is the richest of lands and the weakest in defending itself. Although Umar, who wished to consolidate Muslim gains after years of incessant warfare and plague, was initially reluctant, believing Amr was underestimating the task, his eloquence and persistence eventually led the Caliph to relent.
That is true, and why Umar bin As believed that it was easy, simply because it was completely divided by land from the Byzantine. It was very close to them, much closer than Byzantine ships. He has highly capable soldiers in his hands. You know, there's the cultics, which they don't like the Romans. So when, just like in Levant, in Iraq, in Mesopotamia, Iraq/Mesopotamia, you know, the Christian and the other groups in the region, the Arabs and so on and so forth, and other non-Romans and non-Persians, where don't like the Persians and the Romans. So when he makes notable succession into this land, then the people who oppose the Romans will get brave to stand up with the caliphate against the Romans, because early those people who fought the caliphate, like even since the beginning, half of the Arabs in Iraq and Levant fought with the caliphate. The early first step into the conquest of Persia was with 20,000 soldiers by Muthanna, who was one of the leaders tribes between the Arabs of the Arabian Peninsula and the Arabs of Mesopotamia. He started the conquest, and the reason why he didn't become Muslim early on, or became the Yathrib instead, became like Yathrib, his city would become Medina instead of the city of the Prophet, the Medina we know about, before Yathrib would have been the place is because he was scared of the Persian emperor saying that to Muhammad, to the prophet, where you his coat, like in a way, the meaning of it basically saying what you saying to the prophet is what kings hate. So he didn't want the Persian Empire to go angry on him, but when the caliphate got established, he got his back covered. All right. So that's the first clash. Then Khalid came. It's also one of the reasons why Khalid conquest was much easier than it would be into Mesopotamia. Same thing here. It's just when the people inside that against the Romans gets confident that with the caliphate they will fight with the caliphate. That's why it is easy, and also separated, from Cyprus to Constantinople to the Byzantine mainland, and through Cyprus to here, some distance, man. Like from here to here, it needs multiple weeks, but from here to here, it's days to get supplies. Well, I would say like the navy is actually faster than land. However, especially when you use certain trade lines that you know about, roads, it's the navy is faster than that. However, the navy could have some wind issues, as well as this distance here is too short. The map is not fully accurate, but the distance from here to here is over 700. It's close to 1,000 kilometers, according to my knowledge. 700,000 kilometers, much longer than the distance here. So the ships actually, even though they're faster, the sheer distance makes the ground support much faster than the ships. However, the ships can carry more than... there's a trade-off. However, it is for them. They don't need a lot of, the army that gets over here, they don't need a lot of supplies. The initial attacks all the way to here, like after they took Damascus, they didn't have a lot of, the army, the Arabian army was starving. Plus, starvation is, they used to it, like, they don't eat much. At the time, the Arabs, at the time, they eat like once every 2 days. One meal every 2 days. They don't have a lot of fruits. It's like fruits, even fakiha. In Arabic words, fakiha, and from fakha, it means, it's not necessary for life. It's for, pleasure. That's what fruits in the ancient world, especially in the Arabian land, is for. It's, this is for the rich. So they're accustomed to it. It's also one of the things that make their army strong. They don't need a lot of supplies. They don't need to maintain supplies. As well as the conquest, most of it is during the month of Ramadan, so they're fasting anyway. They don't need much of supplies. And with the elites, he doesn't need a lot of supplies. Food and stuff. Plus he can use the riches of the area itself, and at the same time he didn't. Later on we see that the Conquest themselves start to fight with Omar. Later on, and that's why how the Romans got defeated. The Romans have relatively somewhat around 200,000 in Egypt. It wasn't fully guarded. In the Battle of Yarmouk, they had everything, but no forces supported the Battle of Yarmouk. Perhaps maybe like send soldiers through the sea to Cyprus. No, there's no soldiers at all from Egypt, because they wanna guard Egypt. Egypt was guarded previously, beforehand. It didn't need a lot of support. However, what happened is the forces inside, the pure Roman forces, went strong on their own. So the Caucasus were supporting them, but then if the Caucasus goes against them with the Caliphate, there's no much of support. That's why historians say, when historians talk, sometimes they say stuff assuming other stuff. So that's when people get some misconceptions. That's why also I'm saying I don't like, for most of the time, to simplify stuff in this regard, in this type of situations. It's relatively 200,000, but 80,000 Romans, 80-ish thousand Colchis. So what Omar was doing, like most of his army cavalry, he didn't have artillery or anything. We see like he once used it, but he just made it. Plus, no carrying, no much supplies. There were more raiding than, even most of, the conquest here we see before. There's no more sieges. A siege is basically, they do the most fundamental siege thing. They try to do assassination, sneak soldiers in the night and stuff like that. Sneak small group, company of, tiny forces, try to open the gates and through the soldiers through the gate into the city, stuff like that. But they never try to, break down the walls, storm the walls, board ladders. Sometimes they did use ladders, but there's no artillery, no, destroying walls, no, taking castle tactics. They do the most basic, sieging technique, and that is surrounding and starving, the city, the castle, the fortification, the camp, whatever it is. They don't storm it. They skirmish it, but they don't attack it. In a way or another, with small forces. They just starve it out. They cut supplies and support. They cut the city. They force everyone to go inside the walls. So they separate the city from its main farming grounds and all that stuff. Plus, the Arabs could use these farming grounds in their, this army to supply their army, and on and so forth. So normal siege. They just disconnect the city from the rest of the world by surrounding it. They don't attack. They don't storm. So he doesn't, and they have some techniques in that regard, so nobody can break the thing, the siege. So they were really good in this regard. So he didn't read much of forces. It's clear that he was thinking, or what he was thinking is, by having some victories, defeating the Romans and so on and so forth, the Celtics then were allied with the Caliphate, and therefore by giving additional terms and stuff like that. Plus they wanna free the Caucasus. Plus this conquest here was originally a task given by the Caucasus high priest that was driven out for 13 years, was running away from the Roman emperor. Roman sent a lot of people to kill him as assassins and so on and so forth. The emperor wants his head. The high priest of Alexandria didn't agree with the Christian stuff and other stuff like that, with the Caucasus thing, and with the Roman emperor. So Caucasus they talk about that later. So I was thinking that then the Caucasus from Alexandria would support their conquest to free themselves from the Romans, and that's exactly what happened. So he wasn't hoping 4,000, 8,000 to take down Egypt. That's impossible. Egypt had 2 million inhabitants at the time. If these 2 million inhabitants, even the women and the children, they will give each a rock and threw them at the 4,000, 8,000 soldiers, they would die. Alright, I don't care if even Lubu was there. It doesn't matter. Alright, there's no way that small army will control this area. Even if it did, they will easily lose it later on. They cannot build garrison and stuff like that. And there's a lot of back and forth in this campaign. The main thing in this campaign was trying to defeat the Romans, make victories, some indirect messages to the Caucasus to ally with the Caliphate and overthrow the Romans. That's his plan.
Restricted to just 4,000 troops.
It wasn't 4,000. It was 8,000. That's totally wrong. It wasn't 4,000. I don't really know from where did he come with this 4,000 number. It was clearly 8,000 highly veteran, capable, the best of the best in the Levant, in Mesopotamia, and in Arabian Peninsula that survived the plague, survived the campaign, and were free, as well as free. I mean, they had time. They didn't have other duties. They were proper Muslims, trusted, capable warriors, and they were all cavalry. And there's even resources saying that each man were carrying 2 horses, not carrying on their shoulders. Don't try to be sneaky. I mean, carrying with them 2 horses and some camels. And the Arabs use camels as storage for water, and food, because they eat the camel. So yeah. The camels are perfect storage for water. It's like having a plastic container that oscillates water from the outside temperatures, keeps it cold and stuff. Camels is basically the same thing. So after they kill the camel, they drink the water, as well as eating the camel as food. And also the camels are used to destroy the Roman Testudo formation by having 2 or 4 camels tied together with a rope, and the rope is strong and has some steel support, plus it has some sharp star thing into them. So those camels will run as fast as possible, stretch the line, and destroy the entire Testudo formation. Plus, I want to note that most of the weapons and the arrows were poisoned by scorpion and snake poison, or a mixture even, and other special poison. They had a lot of poison because they easily can produce normal snake and scorpion poison, the desert. So they were using that. So that's why the Romans suffered, and the Persians suffered a huge amount of casualties, is because most of the injured will later on die due to the poison. If you get injured by an arrow that touches you, the poison wasn't like, even if it touched your skin, it would kill you. Plus they were using a lot of poison tactics. That's also part of the assassination, all that stuff. Poison tactics like poisoning the supplies, food and water, with special poison that cannot be tested, it doesn't change the taste of the food, doesn't have shape and all that stuff. So it's nearly impossible to detect unless you do some chemical testing. It's hard to do to an entire huge line of supplies. So there's some armies and legions will go out, like totally wiped out a few times by poisoning their supplies. They're even capable of doing some Mongol tactics, so to speak. Not as good as the Mongols, but they can do some Mongol tactics of horse archery. Because they're so good at archery, they're veteran warriors, that they can do it on top of a horse as well. So they use that a few times. They use that in skirmishes as well. The soldiers were 8,000, not 4,000.
Cavalry. Amr set forth from Jabia that same night in total secrecy, under the condition that he would withdraw if instructions to turn back reached him before he crossed into Egypt. However, if Amr's army was already inside Egypt when these instructions arrived, it could keep going. Convinced almost immediately that this expedition was too risky, Umar sent a camel rider off to Amr carrying a sealed letter ordering him to pull back. When it reached the general at Rafah, just a few miles from Egypt, Amr understood that the letter would doom his expedition before it even began. So Amr left the message unopened and moved into Egypt, and only then opened the letter. and since the army was already in Egypt when Umar's orders were revealed, Amr reasoned that it could keep going. The timeless province...
As I said, he's really good diplomatic politician, so let's continue. That's all accurate. But the total number of the expedition was 8,000 cavalrymen.
Of power and riches was incredibly vulnerable, weakened by years of military laxity, and alienated from the imperial authorities in Constantinople by long-standing cultural and religious differences. The primary...
that's what we're talking about, but that's a big part of the campaign. It needs a lot of more emphasis.
Factor was that the Copts, Egypt's native population, adhered to a different form of Christianity to the empire at large. Emperor Heraclius in particular persecuted any perceived heretic in a manner that made religious division inevitable. The Roman authorities
That's exactly the plan of Amr's.
In Alexandria were alerted to Amr's presence, responding by raising troops and sending some of them to reinforce Pelusium, the key to Egypt. Setting forth from Arish in late December 639, the Caliphate's small army of veterans soon reached Pelusium, besieging it by land. However, Roman naval superiority meant that the city garrison could be reinforced and supplied, and this led to a 2-month-long siege, which was only brought...
It was very steady, long campaign because of the tiny size of the First Caliphate army, and their main tool of taking down fortifications is by surrounding it and disconnecting, starving the area. That's what slowed them, so it would take months, a year, to completely force the inhabitants into surrender.
To a conclusion when the Muslims repulsed a sortie and stormed the city in mid-February 640. After taking Pelusium, to the alarm and astonishment of the government in Alexandria, Amr marched unopposed along the Nile Delta's eastern fringe until he reached the citadel of Bilbais. The defenders resisted under blockade for a month, giving the Romans time to shift their forces around. Aware...
it's one of the problems where they didn't have siege equipment, which slowed them down as well as made them more powerful. It has positives and negatives, advantages and disadvantages, but it was a kind of a problem. It had advantages and disadvantages, and also it shows how powerful they are. Many times, there's I don't know anyone in history who, well, I know some, but not in this way. I mean, not over and over and over and over. Took castles and fortification with cavalrymen, with just soldiers, no siege equipment, no massive armies, no infantry. Okay, it's hard. Okay, but the First Caliphate did the impossible many times.
That the marauding 4,000 Arabs were aiming for the Memphis area, Egypt's prefect and patriarch of Alexandria, Cyrus, marched a 20,000 strong army to reinforce the nearby fortress called Babylon. Commanded by Augustalis Theodorus and garrisoned by 5,000 soldiers, Babylon was one of the Nile's strongest defensive bastions, standing 60 feet high in places and possessing walls up to 6 feet thick. By the time Amr starved the Bilbais defenders into surrender in the spring of 640,
starving to surrender is almost the only tactic that the Arabs had to first caliphate the Muslims have in their capabilities to take down fortification, which is effective but slow.
The Romans were prepared for his inevitable assault. Bypassing Heliopolis on their left, the Muslims arrived outside Babylon in May. Due to its sheer size, only some of Theodorus's army were manning the battlements, while most were encamped outside of the northern wall of the fortress, protected by a deep arcing ditch. Fortifying this secondary position even further were spikes in front, and undug sections around the perimeter to act as sally points. Shortly after arriving and witnessing the Roman strength arrayed inside Babylon, Amr launched his 4,000 against the Roman units directly in front of the trench. After a hard-fought skirmish, the Muslims were repulsed with relative ease and set about finally making camp.
I want to note that the 8,000 that were involved what I call at this point, the 8,000 that were involved didn't lose any soldier until this even after this battle, even after this siege. All the battles they had before, they didn't lose even one soldier. They had casualties, but when you say casualty, if you're a historian, I'm different. I definitely know you know that. But casualty means the injured and the dead. So when someone's a casualty, it doesn't necessarily mean they died. So they had casualties. They had some soldiers who were not fighting with them because they were injured or unconscious or something like that. But they didn't have any dead so far. Even after this siege, didn't have any dead. Those highly capable. This is a highly capable army, the best of the best. As I said in the beginning, he just wanted success and some form of fortification he can have a strong hold in, and he wanted some defeats on the Romans there and there, skirmish them, weakening them, annoying them, scaring them, to rise the confidence of the Celtics, so then the Celtics will ally with the Caliphate and take over the Romans. The Celtics weren't allied with the Caliphate from the beginning simply because if the Caliphate will lose, especially when the army is small, what will happen to the Celtics? They will give, genocide after genocide and all that shit. Alright? So they didn't want that to happen, so they just worked with their overlord in the beginning, with the Romans. So he just wanted to make them confident to ally with him and their 90-ish thousand soldiers. Like they had relatively the same amount of soldiers as the Romans did have in the land. So with Celtics, with this elite caliphate force, he's saying that it's really easy to overthrow the Romans. And it is true. It's really easy land if the Celtics will ally with the caliphate. And his plan to make the Celtics confident to ally with the Caliphate.
Camp. Observing that his plan to keep Theodorus on the defensive was paying off, Amr mounted daily raids against the Roman positions all along the ditch. Furthermore, in an attempt to conceal just how tiny his forces were, the Muslim commander split and spread it over a large area. This state of affairs lasted for 2 months, the Muslims constantly assailing the Roman positions, and the Romans remaining hunkered down behind the ditch, presumably believing they would be able to win without fighting. By July, no opportunity to gain a decisive victory had shown itself to Amr, and his men were slowly tiring. So, having put the eventuality to the back of his mind, the man who had proclaimed that taking Egypt would be simple wrote to the Caliph.
Yeah, it is simple. The Celtics were allied with the Caliphate. That's his plan. He just wanted some victories to make the Celtics confident to ally with the Caliphate and overthrow the Romans, because the Caliphate had tolerance, it had freedom, justice, equality, and other stuff like that. I just ended being later before. All the way up to the 17th century, the Levant in Egypt then was a 90% or more Christian majority. Not many converted to Islam. Until the 17th, 16th century, it's got different. Islam has religious tolerance, freedom, equality, and justice on a very high level, and extremely much higher than the justice and equality in the way it is at the time and at these lands were around the Caliphate. What the Caliphate did of justice, equality, tolerance was so alien to the people around that they basically, justice, tolerance, stuff like that, the people at the time were viewing them as, a dream. Some, childish, naive stuff. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. This is just heaven stuff. But the Caliphate showed that it's not heaven. Heaven better than that. But this is justice. Show them that it's capable to be on earth. It's a right for every single human being, a Muslim and a non-Muslim, as long as you don't fight Islam and the government. But the Muslim expansion didn't expand Islam that much. It expanded Islam into Indonesia and everybody, but through the merchant there were not, soldiers fighting in Indonesia and so on and so forth. It didn't force by the sword, and the convention wasn't by the sword. It didn't spread by the sword, but people chose to be Muslims. For 99% of the time, there's 1% of the time where the generals basically they had some ideas, different ideas, not different Muslims, different belief ideas. However, they forced some to get to Islam for political and economical reasons. Most of that happened in India. It happened a few times, just few generals, 2 or 3 of them, which 2 of them were Islam is questioned, highly questioned. Islam didn't spread, the Caliphate didn't spread Islam more than it spreaded the jurisdictions of Islam and the control of the Muslims of this land. The government is Muslim government, but the pollution is not Muslim. What this for centuries and centuries, all the way up to the 16th, 17th century, until it became a Muslim land. I'm talking here even for Northern Africa, rest of Northern Africa. I'm talking here about Persia and the other Turks, all that stuff. Muslims are a minority in the Muslim empires, all the way until 16th, 17th century. The only Muslim area is the southern Levant, southern Mesopotamia, and Ethiopia has a lot of Muslims there, close to the sea, to the Red Sea. And you have, of course, Arabian Peninsula. It still had 10% Christians. But the Arabian Peninsula, it's like Muslim land. List of the lands controlled by the Muslims and the Arabs. They were Christian majority in other religions, all the way up to the 16th, 17th century. During the Ottoman Empire. It's where the Muslim expanded is the government, the jurisdictions, the law of Islam, the Sharia law, the law of jurisdiction. Sharia means jurisdictions. And the government rule of the Muslims. The Muslims just rule the government and the land. But the land people are not Muslims majority. Alright? let's continue.
asking for reinforcements.
And for the reinforcements, doesn't he knows what he's doing. Not this sentence here, not this one like previously. The one who thought taking Egypt is easy now is asking for reinforcements. He questioning him, he challenging him. I feel this is a bit offensive a bit. It's not that's a wrong understanding. That's childish question. That's what I asked when I first studying this. Come on, man. This is a childish question. Childish stuff. Alright? He's asking for reinforcement because he needs reinforcements. That's it. It's not because Egypt is a hard task. His plan, as I said before, is to give the Celtics on his side. When the Celtics on his side, that's a risk that Omar, the Caliph, was talking about. Otherwise, if the Celtics on his side, it's easy to overthrow the Romans. As easy as drinking water, it's a matter of time. Especially when the Levant is controlled by the Caliphate. The Romans are really far away. And if you're talking about the road control of the rest of Northern Africa, there's not much can be done from that side. There's a lot of desert and things like that. So yeah. Plus Egypt, it's a desert majority. You have like the 6 kilometers across the Nile, 6 kilometers from each side, and you have the delta area. That's the only green area, extremely rich and extremely fertile, and all the richness are there in terms of agriculture and stuff like that. But the desert, like there's many battles. He dragged the Romans into the desert and wiped them out there. The area where the permanence is, it's a full desert. It's just outside of main Egypt or main northern Egypt. Yeah. He didn't do any mistake here. It's not like, oops, I need reinforcements. At some time he's gonna need reinforcements. Plus he knows Omar is not gonna leave him to get wiped out. If he asks for reinforcement, Omar gonna give him reinforcement. But his plan is to get the Celtics on his side.
Rather than chiding his overly optimistic general, Umar mustered and sent him 4,000 reinforcements to...
This is a big mistake here. The main reason why I'm doing this video and doing the other series, I'm gonna continue this, commenting on the videos and the previous videos, is due to these type of mistakes. Man, this is so big mistake. This is not historically accurate at all. He didn't send 4,000. He sent 4 men. Not 4,000. 4 men. There's a whole lot of code saying and back and forth messages between Omar and Amr. Say like, I need 4,000, not 4 men, and saying these 4 as capable as 4,000. Amongst them Qaqa, and the other guy is gonna talk about him, and his oh man, how did I forget this guy's name? You have a Qaqa and you have 2 others, I forgot their name. The great 4, the greatest 4 warriors, not period, but the one who were engaged into these battles, each capable as 1,000. Most capable amongst them is Qaqa. Second capable is man, he's gonna talk about him. I forgot his name, man. Anyway, 4 men, not 4,000. 4, not 4,000. Come on, not even 400. It's 4 men. 4 men, not 4,000. Because Amr did have already in his disposal 8,000. he already had 8,000 under his leadership. These 4 are not 4,000, they're 4 men. Alright? And the reason why he's sending him 4 men is to make his numbers as if it was 12,000. And the Prophet said, there's an army made of 12,000. It's extremely hard to be defeated. It's impossible to be defeated. But it's not really impossible, period. But it is really hard to be defeated. And it doesn't have to be exactly 4,000, but any number that divided or by 12,000 or similar to 12,000, so 12,000, 120,000, because 12, you have 3 times 4 and 4 times 3. When you divide your army, it's both odd and even. Problem with even, you get separated. Problem with odd, way too much division, but with 12 it has qualities of odd and even numbers. Same with 18 and 24. So yeah, but it 4 men, not 4,000. This is a big mistake. I watched many videos before and I didn't have problems such this or a little bit smaller than that. With accuracy, not just for the caliphate. I'm a subscriber to them. Like, I watch their videos and they're really good, but there's tiny problems like this there and there. However, this problem, this one over here is a big one. It's not 4,000, it's 4 men, for God's sake.
Conclude the campaign, who reached Amma a few weeks later. With these new forces, the Muslim attacks on Babylon were renewed with even greater force, killing large numbers of Roman soldiers, but failing to break the bastion's resistance. Even more hesitantly than the first time, Amma sent another request for Umar's aid. This time a further 4,000 troops were dispatched.
This has never happened. This has literally never happened. Plus these soldiers here we see about Persian way, not Arabian way. We don't have these things in the army. Plus this is not how the way the caliphate was dressed. Caliphate were not dressed like this. They were random. Okay. Also the horses, the main 8,000 army of the horses were heavily armed. The horses were the best horses as well as the men, the best men. Some of the horses were European horses, were longer. They can jump long, so the army wasn't just cavalry. There's many different cavalry units, but all of them are capable of becoming swapped to become horse archers. There's some of them with longer special lances, some with short lances, some with medium lances, some had hoplites, some had pole arms, some had different shields and all that stuff. There was some chariots as well, and there's some chariot units as well, like 30 of them, something like that. Not 30 units, 30 chariots, with every chariot having 3 horses pulling it. It's like special chariots. You had cover the big chariots, and there was some chariots that had 5 horses, and Omar was like, he swapped between those 3. Each one of them had different color, and he swapped between them. Sometimes they don't have color, like clothes on them, piece of piece of cloth on them, but not actual cloth, the color thing. Sometimes they don't, to disguise where he is. As well as so 3 chariots that each have 5 horses. With 5 horses, the chariot can run faster than an average horse, so they can catch up to the cavalry units. And each of these big chariots had not 3 soldiers on top of it, or 3 or 4. It had had 8 soldiers, where one of them is basically the one who controls the chariot, and 7 others, hitters and archers shooting, javelin throwers, stuff like that, and even throwing rocks and some other machine that increases the speed of the rock throwing. I forgot its name, stuff like that, and there was using chemicals and putting into a breakable container, stuff like that. Oil, and you light it up and then you throw it on the other soldiers, the enemy. So it wasn't, and the horses were armed, heavily armed, and the cavalry were, by definition, heavy cavalry is the weight. Heavy cavalry is basically the weight of the horse, the weight of the horse equipment, the weight of additional equipment that the soldier has or will carry, and the weight of the soldier, and the weight of the shield of the soldier, and his armor and weapons that would he use while he's riding, and the additional weapons. The total weight would determine whether it is a heavy cavalry or it is a light cavalry. But he was using customs horses, like trained, high capable, strong horses, and were heavily armed. The strange about this small army, they are by weight, by definition, heavy cavalry, but they were acting like a light cavalry. They were moving way too fast, way too quick, like if it was a light cavalry. So it's performing both the heavy and light cavalry simultaneously. They were heavily armed, not like this. Like, it's those 8,000 are the best of the best available to the Caliphate, with the best equipment and everything.
Under the leadership of Zubayr bin al-Awwam, who, despite being offered Amr's command by the irritated Caliph, merely stated that he wished to help the Muslims engaged in Egypt.
There wasn't 4,000 for additional enforcement. There was a back and forth asking for enforcement because he got 4 men instead of 4,000, and Amr al-As already had 8,000 before. He entered Egypt with 8,000. All right, not 4,000 as I said before, and the reinforcement was 4 men, not 4,000.
These new troops arrived in late September. After conducting a personal reconnaissance mission around the area, Zubayr pointed out something to Amr which the general seems to have missed. Still present about 10 miles behind the Muslim army was the Roman garrison city of Heliopolis. If coordinated correctly, these troops could smash into the Muslims from behind if Theodorus launched any attack from Babylon. To remove this potential threat, Amr led a large portion of his 12,000 soldiers to Heliopolis.
By numbers, there are still 8,000, not 12,000. There are 8,004 soldiers, but regarded in total by Omar as if it was 12,000, as those 4 each equal 1,000.
Leaving just enough at the fortress to keep the Romans on their toes. Upon approaching the walls, however, some of the garrison's cavalry contingent emerged from the city and beat some of Amr's horsemen in a brief engagement. Nevertheless, they were forced to pull back inside the walls as the city was besieged. Only a short time.
At this moment, at this time, where the 8,000 started to suffer actual, death casualty, had like few tens of soldiers dying. Until now, they started to lose some soldiers. Later on, not even one died.
Time after investing Heliopolis, Zubayr and a small unit of hand-picked warriors scaled the walls.
Zubayr over here didn't scale the walls. The small unit did scale the walls, but Zubayr didn't scale the walls. At this moment here, Zubayr, brought a cannibal and brought himself instead of a cannibal shot, and shot him. The others shot him instead of a cannibal shot, instead of the boulder, the rock, giant rock the cannibal will throw. He was in it and landed in the courtyard near the courtyard of the gate, on his feet, and for the soldiers around, and very quickly before other reinforcement come and dodge and survive the archers from the side, and the soldiers from the top, and quickly got into near the gate, opened the gate, defended the gate for minutes until the rest of the army entered the gate, and plus there's some other soldiers were helping Omar over here, scaling the walls through the ladders and fighting some of the soldiers into the walls and the archers. There were some archers here, not all of them spearmen. The walls, you put archers on the walls, and then when this enemy soldiers comes near you, you swap them with even not spearmen. You don't need much spearmen here. You need some spearmen, but there will be not really spearmen. You don't need professional spearmen. You just give spears to some soldiers. But on the walls, you need axes and swords and maces and shields, of course. That's what you need on top of the walls. So that's how they took down this castle. He missed this story. He missed it completely. Alright? This guy, the name of this warrior is the second guy, the second strongest or equal to Kaka. I forgot his name. What was it? Zubair, right? Zubair bin al-Awwam, Zubair son of Awwam. His father Awwam means the floater, because it's a nickname. His father's name Awwam, it's a nickname. I don't know what his father's actual name is, but his nickname is Awwam because he was really good at swimming, floater. Alright, so yeah, Zubair was the second strongest, the most notable in this campaign, but he had this Qaqa friend who's much capable warrior than him. Were fighting amongst those four that each were equal to 1,000. So it wasn't 4,000, it was 4 men, and Zubair is the one who took down this castle by throwing himself with a cannibal instead of a rock, landing on his feet in the courtyard, cutting the distance as quick as possible, destroying some units, 2-3, and then defending the gate, opening the gate and defending the gate for a while until the soldiers pour in. While there's another unit trying to scale the wall by reducing the pressure on Zubair bin Awwam. This story completely not here.
Time after investing Heliopolis, Zubair and a small unit of hand-picked warriors scaled the walls in a dashing maneuver and breached the city. Seeing this, and realizing that the result of the clash was inevitable anyway, Heliopolis' garrison sued for peace and paid the jizya, after which Ammar and Zubair returned to Babylon. In their absence, the Romans had driven away the Muslim detachments closest to the trench and re-established their positions beyond it. Theodorus, likely realizing that he wasn't going to have the luxury of simply waiting the invaders out, began employing the Muslims' own tactics against them, launching daily raids through.
It's not employing the Muslim tactics against them. This is a normal tactics. Everybody knows this. This is basics in tactics, not just from my perspective nowadays, as we look back to history and the military nowadays. But think about it, logic, man. And at the same time, this tactic was used before by everybody. Like everyone knows this tactic. But the Muslim emphasized, early Muslims emphasized on this a lot.
the Roman bridgeheads. Although the Romans generally lost more men in these scattered engagements, they could afford to, while Amr could not. The stalemate went on relatively unchanged until a revered Arab officer, Kharija bin Huzafa, approached Amr with a
this guy is the first strongest guy amongst the four.
A risky but potentially decisive plan to win the battle.
Now the 4 warriors are equal to 4,000. They're not only pure warriors. They have some general elements, like a general, not general around, but a general elements to them. Especially Qahqah was extremely capable of controlling soldiers, and with Khalid, he was the second in command after Khalid bin Walid to the Khalid bin Walid main legion, and Khalid bin Walid main legion was made of 24,000 at its highest, but there was a 12,000 cavalrymen whom are more capable than those 8,000, but most of them died in the plague, as well as some of these 8,000 were from that unit, legion, what do you call it, unit, giant unit, battalion, let's call it battalion, and some of them, the battalion got scattered later on, and deposed, plus this was one of the main battalions under the leadership of Khalid, so after Khalid died, they got scattered and stuff like that. But I can say half of the 8,000 that involved in this campaign from this battalion. And they were under the leadership of Qahqah himself. So Qahqah knows how to deal with 8,000, 12,000, 10,000 soldiers. Like, he has some commander elements. Alright, he's very quick, so the main commander doesn't have to tell him all the stuff to do every single tiny thing, or he can do stuff from his brain, stuff like that. Plus there were highly capable soldiers of scaring the soldiers of the opposite side. Plus their names were well known during these times, and there are the soldiers of the opposite teams. They fear them, just like how Lu Bu and Guan Yu was extremely feared in the Three Kingdoms era, just like how Wang Yi and Liang Po extremely feared during the spring and autumn period. Liang Po from the 3 great generals of Zhao, and Guan Yu was one of the greatest, one of the great 6 generals of Qin during the spring and autumn wars. They were extremely feared, especially Qahqah was as feared, proportionally speaking, in equivalent as Lu Bu was feared during the Three Kingdoms era. I would say that Qahqah and Zubair on the same field as capable as the 3 greatest warriors during the 3 greatest warriors during the during the Three Kingdoms era, and those 3 warriors during the Three Kingdoms are the most capable during the entire history of China until today, entire its history until today. And what I call this league, this type of warrior, one-man army warriors, I call them the Lu Bu League. Basically, just because Lu Bu emphasizes way too much on getting super angry, as well as is iconic and is famous due to video games and stuff like that. And people talk more about others than others. Plus, he was emphasized on too much, more than even Guan Yu. Even we know Guan Yu is slightly more capable than Lu Bu. Those top 3 were all on the same ground, but Lu Bu was emphasized on him more in literature and poet, because he was poet himself. So yeah, but I'll call this league Lu Bu League. the highly capable one-man army warriors. Lu Bu was nicknamed the warrior of warriors. So yeah, he's one of the 3 greatest dragons in the Three Kingdoms era. Anyway, let's move on. So yeah, those type of warriors have a capability of scaring the other armies through their reputation, through their charisma, through their intention, other stuff like that, which is extremely important in the battlefield.
That night,
they're not only capable of doing that, you can use those to kill officers, certain generals, certain warriors, certain names in the army. Morale is a really important thing in the battlefield. Soldiers are not reports. Those type of work can increase your man morale and decrease your enemy morale. Stuff like that.
Karija was given a cavalry regiment and ordered to lay his
I'm gonna make a video on this type of stuff later on.
Trap, which he did by riding around to the southern spur of a featureless ridge on the eastern side of the field. After quietly taking up a concealed position relatively close to the Romans' ditch, the Muslim cavalry waited. As Huzafa suspected, when morning came, the Roman forces crossed the trench in force and deployed for battle. The Muslims arrayed opposite them. When both sides were ready, Theodorus launched his attack across the front, pushing Amma, who ordered his army to retreat from Babylon with suspicious ease. It was in reality a feigned retreat. When the melee had moved far beyond Babylon's defensive trench, Karija's mounted contingent galloped out from their hiding place behind the ridge and occupied the crossing areas which Theodorus would have to use for any retreat. Amma, seeing that his horsemen were in place, countercharged with immense ferocity, driving the Romans back towards their own fortifications. Hearing the given signal, Karija also launched his assault, crashing straight into Theodorus's rear, hemming the Romans in and then encircling them. Many defenders were killed, but a few Roman units turned and burst.
At this moment until now, you see over here, they use that for infantry. Yeah, there was an infantry. The entire force is cavalry, and with some chariots, and even every man, the 8,000. There were not 4 additional thousand, 4 men, as I said before. The 8,000, as I said, each had 2 horses, and they have camels with them as a storage as well as a weapon to destroy the Roman Destidos. Also can be used to scare the horses, especially when the horse never saw a camel before, and there's some tactics to give a camel angry or vicious. They use that. The entire force was cavalry, alright? There's no infantry. Any infantry will cross that small will get wiped out very quickly. Plus, infantry would take tons of time until it reaches. There are 4 men. And plus, of the entire force was 8,000 of cavalry. Alright, the entire force is 8,000 of cavalry. That's how they move very quickly. They take land very quickly. They defeat the skirmish and do a lot of hassle very quickly, and they show off their might very quickly, which is part of the almost, as I said before, to give the Celtics on their side against the Romans, to give the Celtics to say that it will be safe to ally with the Caliphate. Because if the Caliphate goes away from Egypt and the Romans still control Egypt, and when the Celtics fall with the Caliphate against the Romans, the Celtics will get persecuted far more. Will get persecuted so heavy. Therefore, he just wanted to make the Celtics confident of allying with him. As I said before, this is the plan. That's how it becomes easy.
Through Huzafa's cavalry, managing to re-secure the crossing.
Plus, during this time, the reason why Omar cannot give him enforcement, because during this time there was still fighting skirmishes in Mesopotamia with Persia, as well as there's a lot of push from Byzantine through Anatolia to northern Syria, and because also Omar views Egypt as super hard and doesn't want soldiers to die there, doesn't want waste soldiers, or especially competent soldiers, and more especially as I say, we have the plague that happened as well. So yeah, let's continue.
Points. The remnants of the Roman army at Babylon retreated across the trench, pursued.
In this battle here, there was Celtics and Romans. They were all so far under the control of the Byzantine, but it wasn't completely Romans at all.
Closely by Amr's forces, who continued their attack up to the very walls of the fortress. Fighting continued in the space between the ditch and the citadel proper, until the gate was closed from inside. Those who got in were the lucky ones, as not a single Roman soldier remained alive on the field of battle. The morale of
the soldiers that outside got wiped out, because the Muslim army is allowed to wipe out the soldiers as long as it continues to be a battle, because you're not allowed to kill the injured or the captured. However, totally not allowed. If you do it, you're basically messing with your Islam, alright? With your belief. And if the caliphate knows, or the general knows, you have to be executed on the spot if it gets proven. So yeah, you cannot do that. However, it's still part of the battlefield. They're very close to the enemy line, so they're allowed to do that. Plus, many of the soldiers, as I said, they most likely got poisoned, and it's a very tiny army. The entire army would be full of poison. Very strong, efficient poison.
Fighting continued in the space between the ditch and the citadel proper, until the gate was closed from inside. Those who got in were the lucky ones, as not a single Roman soldier remained alive on the field of battle. The morale of Cyrus, who was not a military man by profession, and the Roman soldiery as a whole, was completely shaken by this stark defeat, and to the prefect it was clear that peace had to be concluded. To make matters even more dire, Amr somehow got his hands on a few catapults and used them to launch deadly boulders, softening up the defenses.
Somehow I like this over here. Nobody knows how he did that. Most likely, as it happened before, they just make it on the spot, get wood around, make it. Some engineers, something like that. I would say some of the Celtics around made it for him, or he had some engineers with him from Levant to make it. So when he needs it, they will cut some trees and make cannibals. He didn't have cannibals, he made them. But still, we don't know 100% how did he get to this point.
When this began happening, Cyrus departed Babylon with a small escort and took up residence on the mid-river island of Rauda, from which the fortress was being resupplied. Then the Coptic prefect dejectedly sent word to the Muslims that he wished to treat with them. Envoys were exchanged back and forth between the two sides, and Heraclius' viceroy attempted to offer Amr a lavish bribe if the Muslims left Egypt, but the Arab commander responded by giving three options: conversion to Islam, payment of the jizya, or death. Cyrus favored
this payment of jizya, conversion to Islam, payment of jizya, or death. It's basically two options. You allow the Muslim hold the government and you pay jizya, or you convert to Islam and then you don't have to pay the jizya and you be part of the caliphate, or you die, or you don't die. So basically when they win, they will kill every single soldier. If you surrender, that's different. Paying the jizya is surrender, so to speak. But as long as you don't want to surrender, you want to fight, right? So yeah. So that's also the thing. If anyone it's also this thing, paying the jizya, you can see even in Ottoman times. It slowed them, the Muslim expansion, because expansion is not really the main thing. It depends on the politics and the things that's going on at the time. And this particular time as well, like depending on the situation. But expansion is not the main thing. If they wanted to expand, let's look at the Ottoman Empire. They could have conquered Africa. They could have conquered the full Great India. The full Great India was a strong ally of the Ottoman Empire. They could have take control of that. They built, the India wouldn't be able to defend themselves from Portuguese and the Spanish. The only reason the British, as I said before, managed to take down India is because no Ottoman were harassing them and supporting the Indians. Alright? They could have, so even especially before the British come, they could have themselves took control of India. They could have themselves, they had full control of Northern Africa, but why didn't they colonize Africa? Because expansion is not the main thing. And there's many other examples from history. If you no problem, because ensures you're not gonna attack them from behind, you're not gonna harass them, you're not gonna ally with someone else who's an enemy to them. As well as when you pay jizya, it's your right to be defended by them. If you pay your jizya, if anybody else attacking you, it's your right to call for the help, and it's a must for the caliph to defend you. If you pay the jizya, even the caliphate could, with even 100 men, take control of your city, they wouldn't. As long as you pay the jizya. Plus, paying the jizya is only when there's someone that could invade you or invade the Muslims, an enemy of the caliphate, or somebody want to expand, not really an enemy, or there's other forces around could have take advantages of you. Then you pay the jizya, you get support by them. So if there's nobody who is gonna invade you and there's no enemies to the caliphate, they have peace treaties with many others, or some of the superpowers at the time pay jizya, you have a right to not pay jizya. Okay? You wouldn't pay. The thing, the jizya is symbolic, as well as to confirm your not surrender, but you confirm you're not gonna harass them, you're not gonna attack them from back, and also to provide support for you by legislation authentically.
Capitulating in some form, but his Egyptian colleagues wouldn't have any of it, so the stalemate continued outside the impenetrable fortress. Since coming to terms with Cyrus was impossible, Ammar went into Babylon with a few companions in order to speak with Theodorus. However, when he was entering the fortress, a Roman soldier muttered to him scornfully, "You have entered, now see how you get out." Correctly believing orders had been given for him to be killed upon exiting the conference, Ammar tricked his way out of the fortress, convincing Theodorus that he was going to bring even more of his generals unwittingly into the trap. These attempts at ending the siege failed, and the gridlock outside Babylon continued. But finally, in mid-December, the observant Zubayr noticed that since most of the fighting had taken place on Babylon's north side, the riverside Gate of Iron and its 2 guard towers were relatively undefended. Just like that, the Muslims had found a key to Theodorus' citadel. Swiftly putting his infiltration plan into action with Amr's blessing, Zubayr assembled a
Amr's blessing. Maybe we can understand this like the bow blessing. If Omar gives blessing, it does no shit to it, okay? Plus, if you understand this in the wrong way, you basically make shirk, or you make Omar equal to God or somewhat like that. Omar is not even the prophet give you blessing. It's God, the main thing. Omar is just making dua, he asked God to help this campaign. That's what's meant by blessing, not what you would think.
Unit to conduct the operation. On the moonless, clear night of December 20th, 640, most of the Muslim army arrayed quietly outside the Gate of Iron, while Zubayr and his comrades climbed ladders up the wall. Then, when some of his men were gathered on top, a deafening Islamic battle cry was sounded, echoed by the entire army, causing shock and panic amongst defenders who...
I love this Islamic cry. He didn't want to use the words and stuff like that, because now it's used in a bad way. Plus, he didn't want anyone to make him look racist or anything like that. Plus, people have bad intention towards these type of things. Plus, he's gonna slaughter the pronunciation. So yeah,
who had no idea what was happening. Amidst the chaos, Zubayr slew the gatehouse sentries and broke the chain which held the gate closed, allowing Amr and the Muslim army to flood inside. While some of the more elite Roman formations made a brave last stand, most of their comrades routed towards the Nile. Once they reached the riverbank, the soldiers crossed to the safety of Rauda on pre-prepared boats, which ferried soldiers back and forth throughout the night. Among those who fled was Theodorus, who managed to escape Amr's grasp and run back to Alexandria. Day, Cyrus sued for and obtained peace for the Copts on Muslim terms, agreeing to pay the jizya and submit the entire country to Islamic rule.
That's because he was a Cortex. He was an Egyptian, not Roman. He's a Roman citizen, but I mean, by definition, he wasn't Byzantine. He was Egyptian, and he just wasn't confident that that's part of the. That's exactly the caliphate plan. That's Amr's plan, as I talked before, is to convince the cultists that they can ally with the caliphate and overthrow the Romans. It wouldn't be a risk that when the caliphate loses, then the cultists will get persecuted super heavily. So that's what his plan, that's what the entire raid is for. You can't do much with 8,000, even horsemen. You can't do much. So there's 2 million inhabitants, as well as 200,000 soldiers amongst them. Okay, you can't do much with 8,000. You can't cover. You cannot risk cover any control of areas. You cannot risk putting any garrisons. The entire lands they own right now, they can be easily taken back the Romans, because they don't have garrisons there. They can't risk They can't even put 100 soldiers in a castle. They can't even put 2 or 3. They need everyone. This is exactly how Caliphate wants it to go. This is exactly the plan of a general. Convince them they can overthrow the Romans. They ally with the Caliphate. That's the plan.
The Romans in Egypt could either accept and remain, or reject and depart. Unsurprisingly, when Heraclius received a letter from Cyrus seeking the imperial stamp of approval for his peace with Ammar, the emperor was furious and categorically refused, responding with a message full of scorn and insults. To ensure that an active defense of Egypt continued despite the prefect's treachery, Heraclius had other messages ordering firm resistance delivered to all of his Roman generals in Egypt, who obeyed their sovereign without question. Cyrus, disavowed by the Roman.
Exactly, he wasn't Roman, and he was the leader of the cultics at the time. That's exactly the point. He wanted the non-Romans, which are the majority, and half of the majority of the population, and half of the military, to ally with the Caliphate. When that happens, the conquest is easy. That's what the general meant by saying the conquest of Egypt is easy. Is when this happens, it becomes easy, especially when you have small force.
Put himself and the Copts under Ammar's command, promising the Muslims administrative and engineering assistance. Memphis was now secure, and the push towards Alexandria could begin. Our series on the early Muslim expansion will continue soon, so
and my comments will continue as well as this continue, and also I will comment on other videos. So I hope I explained everything and you got the idea. And there's some problems there. That's why oversimplifying things is not good. And there's some misconceptions there. There's some totally inaccurate historically happened there. Like 4,000 reinforcements was 4 men, not 4,000, and the soldiers were already 8,000. When they weren't 12,000, they were 8,004, and everyone was a cavalry, and there were some chariots, maximum 60. 3 of them had 5 horses on them, extremely fast. Of course, a chariot of 5 horses is fast in a straight line. It will be slow in changing direction, just like a destroyer ship. Anyway, many people don't emphasize the point that the Caliphate the soldiers were using a lot of poison, and all their weapons were poisoned, snake and scorpion poisons. So we'll continue this. I hope you like this video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and subscribe to Gate of Babylon to open it to Gate of Babylon, Gate to everything, and peace out.